Hard times. Emergencies happen. You may get laid off or fired. The best case scenario is you are prepared with food in the pantry and lots of gardening resources. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you need to grow a survival garden. My definition of a survival garden is one you can plant easily, grows relatively quickly, crops that are high in nutrients and calories, and one that does not need a lot of space. So here are my top 7 recommended plants. Hi, I'm Amy, and welcome to my channel. I'm a master gardener who spent 29 years living off grid. I understand self sufficiency and living on a small income because I've been there. I have videos and articles about each crop, which I'll link in the description, and you can check out my book for a complete guide to growing vegetables in Zone 6. Beans. There are many different kinds, but for our survival garden, we are looking at green beans. Beans are a wonderful food. They have large seeds that are easy to plant directly into the soil. They are nutritious and have fiber and protein. Beans are very flexible where they grow. They do need warm soil of at least 60 degrees. Sow bush beans every 3 weeks in the summer. That will give you a continuous supply for fresh eating and preserving. Most green beans take about 50 to 55 days to mature. They produce well. Each bush plant produces about half a pound, and poles produce about 1 pound. Cabbage has a reputation as a poor man's food, and rightly so. It's easy to grow as long as you monitor for pests. It's dense and full of nutrients, and it stores well. But it's not lowly. Be prepared in many ways. Everybody loves cabbage. Look for early cabbage varieties that grow quickly. Cabbage are also loved by slugs and caterpillars, so they do need you to keep a close eye on them. And yes, you can grow cabbage in a container. I love red cabbage and grew some on the patio this past year and in a raised bed at my son's. If you are looking for a small space cabbage, go with Tierra or Caraflex. Beets may not be your first choice for a survival food. However, they offer two foods in one. The greens are edible and excellent raw or cooked, and the root or the beet is very nutritious. Beets have bumpy seeds that are easy to handle, but beets must be thinned. That's because each beet seed is actually a cluster of several seeds. So make sure beets are 3 inches apart so the roots have room to grow. And the plants you thin, just add them to a salad. Beets take about 50 to 55 days to mature. They like cool weather, and you can start sowing them as soon as the soil has warmed to 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius. If you don't like the messiness of red beets, stick with yellow varieties such as Touchstone Gold or Boulder. Squash is definitely in my survival garden. You know all those jokes about being overrun with zucchini? Well, that's because it's so prolific. They take about 45 to 50 days to mature. Squash needs warm weather, so wait until the soil temp is at least 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to use landscaping fabric, which warms the soil and helps control weeds. You can also see I've got my plants fairly close together, which is okay as long as the soil is rich in compost. Winter squash does not meet all my requirements for a survival garden since it takes a good 3 months to mature and many types need lots of space. However, you can get bush varieties of winter squash that take up less room. In a 4-foot by 8-foot bed, you can plant 4 hills of bush squash with 2 plants per hill. A planting this size will yield several dozen squash. Not bad from a plot the size of a sheet of plywood. Winter squashes are very nutrient dense and they keep well. Kale is another very productive crop that matures between 50 to 60 days. However, many kales can be eaten at just 28 days as a baby green crop. Sow them about 3 inches apart and then harvest every other one as a baby green for salads and let the rest mature to full size. Another great thing about kale is you can just keep cutting the outer leaves and the plants will keep producing. Kale prefers cooler growing temperatures between 55 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 to 24 degrees Celsius. There are several kinds of kale. My favorite shown here is red Russian kale. It is also a more compact variety and does well in grow bags or containers. Lettuce is a great food for the survival garden because it grows quick and has many varieties suited for both spring and summer. It makes a great succession crop that you can plant every 2 weeks. Tit for tat, romaine lettuce is among the most nutritious type of lettuce and tolerates heat fairly well. It takes around 50 days to mature. Lettuce can bolt in hot weather, which makes the taste become bitter. I cover mine with shade cloth when the weather starts warming. Mesclun or lettuce mixes are a great way to go and provide a nice salad. I work up a bed and sprinkle the seeds over the soil, pat them down, add a light layer of soil just to cover, and water them in. In a few weeks, I'm cutting them for salad. Herbs. We do like it when our food has flavor, so consider growing some herbs. Basil and dill are two that are easy to grow and mature in under 50 days. So, potatoes don't make my survival garden list, and you are probably wondering why. I love growing potatoes, but they can take up lots of room and have a long growing season. But the hardest thing about growing potatoes is often getting your hands on potato seed. If you have an emergency in July, you're unlikely to find potato seed, and it's going to be too late to plant them. Don't waste that urine. Tip number 1 is that urine is a good and free fertilizer. It may sound gross, but human urine is a good source of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It needs to be mixed with water. 10 parts water and 1 part urine will provide a good fertilizer for your plants. Tip number 2 is using any nook and cranny available to you. Patios and balconies and even narrow urban lots can grow an abundance of plants. Are you frustrated because your yard has a lot of shade? Well, check out my series on growing in partial shade. Many vegetables can grow in shade, including kale, lettuce, beans, and beets. I hope this video has had some helpful tips on how to garden when you are strapped for cash. Leave me a comment or question on gardening or off-grid living. No politics, please. Check out my many growing guide videos and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching and have a fabulous day.